The Early Grade Reading Assessment, EGRA, is an assessment tool which assesses learners' reading fluency in the early grades, and it can be used as both a baseline and diagnostic reading assessment. EGRA assesses learners on phonics, recognition of initial letter sounds, word recognition, recognition of familiar sight words, and comprehension, which is done through passage reading. The assessment is completed during home language lessons and more specifically at the beginning of the academic year, entry level or baseline. Mid-year, either second term or third term, this is to check improvement or progression, and at the end of the academic year. Please note that in Grade 1, the first assessment is in Term 2. For this baseline assessment, we only assess letter sounds. Here you see how the teacher organizes her classroom in order for her to complete the assessment uninterrupted and in a relative quiet environment. While she's taking down the individual assessments, the rest of the class will be actively working at their desks.
You're going to come up and get your task card, and you are going to do both sides for me today, okay? You're going to do both E sounds, okay? So first you're going to take this, you have to unscramble the sentences, all right? And then when you're done with that, you're going to turn over, and then you need to choose the correct word and write it in and fill it in with the sentences. Okay, blue group? Red group? You're just going to do
You can use consolidation activities, activities out of the DBE workbook, or worksheets. It is important that you differentiate the activities to suit your different groups.
Yellow group, you're also only going to do the one side for me over here. You're also going to do the double E sound, and you're going to unscramble the sentences. So we're going to do the letter sounds first today. I want you to say B and S. For me, you're going to start over here on the left hand side, and you're going to read all the letters to the right hand side for the first line, the same for the second line, and for the third line, and for the last line, starting on the left, reading all the letters to the right. You get 1 minute. I will tell you when to stop. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
You may start.
When the teacher says begin, the learners will read the sounds or words as best as they can. If the learners want to, they can point to each word as they read it.
Lovely. Well done, my boy. We're going to do the second one now. We're going to say the words, all right? So you're going to say the word pot and bell, all right? You're going to start over here on the left-hand side, and then you're going to read to the end of the line.
The teacher begins the assessment by putting a finger on the first sound or word and saying, "Ready, begin." At the same time, she starts the timer.
Ye will had for so no do my.
If the learners don't know the sound or word, the teacher will read it to them.
Like come, your go in where away can little or have done.
Right, well done.
If you don't have a stopwatch, you can use a cell phone.
Now at the reading passage. Okay. So you're going to read the passage. You're going to try your best to read all the way to the end, starting over here. And
it is important that the teacher will create a relaxed atmosphere in the class. No learner should be stressed during assessment.
You ready?
Yes.
You may start.
Everyone was in the playground at school. It was after the holidays. The children were playing with their toys.
If the learner corrects him or herself upon reading a sound or word, accept it as correct. The teacher will strike a line through a sound or word that the learner reads incorrectly or cannot read at all, as you see here.
On the holidays with her presents, Miss May
If the learner stops for more than 3 seconds, the teacher will provide the sound or word and strike a line through it.
Play tricks.
If the entire
Annie
first
had an
line has
idea.
strike-through lines across
She
all the
watched
words
to
or sounds, the teacher will
play a
stop the
trick on
assessment
Mrs.
and
May.
indicate
Annie
that 0 sounds
cried
or words
out
have been read
that
by the learner.
she
Right, you may stop.
After 1 minute, the teacher will say stop and place a bracket after the last sound or word that the learner has read correctly.
Annie
If the learner had managed to read all the sounds or words
play
correctly
tricks.
in less than
Annie
1
had
minute,
an idea.
the teacher puts a tick mark
watched
on the
to
progression sheet and the
play a
assessment
trick
is
on
regarded
Mrs. May.
as having been
Annie
completed.
cried out
Remember,
that
once a learner has mastered a skill, there's no need for continued assessment on the skill that he or she knows.
I'm now going to ask you some questions on the story and you just try your very best to answer them. Okay? Who bought the snake?
Annie.
Okay? What was the snake made of?
Plastic.
Lovely. Who had an idea?
Annie.
Good. Who was their teacher?
Mrs. May.
What kind of snake was it?
A black adder.
Lovely, my boy. Well done. You've done really well. I'm very proud of you. Now take a sweetie.
To motivate learners, teachers can have a reward system to reward the learner when the assessment is completed, as well as for the rest of the class who worked quietly. After the assessment has been done, the teacher counts and records the number of sounds or words that the learner has read correctly on the progression sheet.
We're going to use the learner assessment book to do the recordings once the children have now done their assessment. Firstly, I'm going to do the letter sounds. I write the date, which is the 23rd of March. The mark is out of 40, so I'm going to just add to see how many this learner didn't get correct.
Here we see how she counts the sounds.
So this learner got 35 out of 40. Secondly is the words. So over here
She
we
will
have a
now do the
total
same
of
with the
80
other
words.
assessment
I'm
tasks.
going to add up. Once I've done all the calculations for each assessment, I go to the recording sheet at the back and I fill in the relevant information.
After completing the counting, she records the results on the progression
Secondly
sheet.
was the words, which is 32. Then the reading was 25.
If a learner could not read the sounds, words or passage within the 1 minute, it is an indication that the learner is not meeting the norm. The necessary intervention strategies should then be planned.
From this recording sheet, this learner did not reach the benchmark for the words as well as the reading. However, improvement was noted from the previous assessment where their word recognition was better. Therefore, the intervention put in place assisted her in that.
Intervention should be done throughout the term to ensure that each learner can reach his or her full potential.
Some practical tips which we have found that have worked in our school is that each grade has a specific color. So for example, grade 1 will be green, grade 2 will be blue, and grade 3 will be red. And each year the teacher will use that appropriate color on the marking sheet to determine the differentiation between each year, or to see which words or letters the children still need help on, or those that they have now grasped.
If you have a classroom of say 40 learners, it is suggested that you divide your class into 5 groups of 8 learners and only assess 1 group of 8 learners per day. In so doing, the process will be completed in a week. In the case where no learner books are provided, the teacher should use a class list to record. When laminated toolkits are used, it is strongly advised that the teacher has her own set of laminated toolkits. A whiteboard marker can then be used to mark the mistakes. It can then be recorded on the class list so that it can inform the teacher on which interventions are needed.